Hello, everyone, and welcome to Esoterica. In today's episode of the interview, I am delighted to introduce you to Samantha Bailey. Samantha is the best-selling author of Women on the Edge, and she just dropped a new thriller called Watch Out for Her. And you can see it. And I can't help but pun saying you got to watch out for Samantha. Like, someone's got to use that term, and I hope I coined it. But if not, I'm sure it's out there. So welcome, Samantha.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. You might have coined the term. Let's say you coined the term.
Okay, I'm going with I coined the term, and so let's watch out for her, Samantha Bailey. And I think your new promos should all say that. So I'm going to
Makes me
start.
sound dangerous.
But you are dangerous. So let's talk about your new novel. Watch out for her. So watch out for her, and I don't want to give too much away. Is that largely focuses on a mother, and it's something we can relate to, who gets a little obsessive. What do you want to tell us about it?
She gets a little obsessive.
Yeah.
So I started writing this book before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And my reasons for writing it became very different after the pandemic started. But the book itself is about Sarah Goldman, as you said. She's a middle-aged mother, a stay-at-home mother of a 6, almost 7-year-old son named Jacob. And she gets to that point in her life where she feels like she's missing herself, a piece of herself. She doesn't know where she begins as a woman, separate from being a mother.
Right.
And so she decides to return to her first love, which is photography, and hires a babysitter named Holly Monroe, a 22-year-old, for the summer to take care of Jacob. And at first, it's a perfect arrangement. Jacob and Holly adore each other.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah and Holly develop this very fast, close bond because they see something in each other they're both longing for.
Right.
But then Sarah, who is a voyeur, sees something that she can't unsee, and feels she needs to escape from Vancouver to Toronto with her family and to start over, only to move into their new home and to find hidden cameras everywhere. And she has to wonder if she's left Holly far behind after all.
Wow. I mean, it sounds so thrilling, and what a pitch. And so, let's talk. So, there's so many themes to talk about. There's motherhood. There's the stress that comes with motherhood. Obviously, the pandemic stress related to motherhood. I never, obviously, it's like verboten to assume anything is personal, but motherhood is stressful. How did that play into writing the book?
So I am a worrier of a mother. I'm definitely overprotective, but less so as my kids get older. They're now almost 12 and almost 15. And the pandemic really taught me a lot about letting go, actually, of a lot of fears and worries, because the most unexpected, almost worse happened that I could never have anticipated.
So true.
So true. So before the pandemic, and as I was starting to write this novel, I wanted to look at the idea that we can't watch who watches our children, and all the fears that come from that. And if you are someone who likes to control a situation, and I do, I like to have control, or I did, because again, I realized I can't control the uncontrollable.
Right.
But I really like that idea. Where I differ, though, from Sarah, one of the reasons I so much wanted to look at this book, and this, I wanted to write this book, was the idea of motherhood separate from our own identity as women.
Right. Right.
I felt that I'd achieved a balance. Finally, my kids were in school. I worked mom hours. I could volunteer and be present for them, and I could have a career that's all my own. But I wanted to explore it. I found it very interesting. So, but of course, when the pandemic hit, I lost all sense of space, time, identity, and I identified far more with Sarah than I had expected to.
Huh.
Yes. Her anxieties are extreme.
Right.
She lost her father when she was 13 years old, and she lost a baby in her second trimester. So when you experience a loss like that, I think you have so much fear about losing anybody else. I have definitely experienced loss, but my fears are more, and mine are more about control.
Right. Well, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I think that's something almost anyone or any mother can relate to. I think there comes a point, there's like some sort of, I don't know, there's got to be like a 7-year itch. It's like you're kind of so immersed in babydom because you have to be, like it's your sole responsibility to keep this human alive. And then when it's clear that they're going to live, and actually survive and be, prosper, what, it's like you kind of forget. I'm like, what? I do remember that stage. I mean, my kids are 18 and 11, but I do remember the stage with my older son. I was like, maybe it was 6 or 7, when I was like, well, who am I again? What did I used to like? I used to like things. What
Yeah.
were they? And I mean, because you kind of go through the motions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You forget, there's this like fiery part of you and this whole side of you that you do have to, or some people do, maybe some people can manage to maintain that
Right.
Forever. And I maintained a lot of it in terms of career.
Right.
Because I made sure that I wrote and I
Mm-hmm.
opened my own editing business and I
Right.
was a freelance journalist because it was so important to me
Mm-hmm.
to be myself. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, and even now, I'm still mom
Right.
first, 100%, because how can it be any other way?
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sure it could be, but I think
It
it
could be.
often is not. I think just
Yes. Yes.
by de facto it's not, but we can always imagine. So, it's interesting. You talk about the pandemic and the environments of fear, and perhaps those elements played into the writing of the book. I find it fascinating. I mean, you don't tackle the pandemic in the book, obviously, but I mean, and doesn't, and it's, I just wonder, I mean, with all that's going on in the world, because I always feel, okay, there's a pandemic, we're getting through it, but what's next? I mean, this is maybe the journalist in me. There's environmental Armageddon, Roe versus Wade was overturned today. There's so much chaos
Was
today.
it? Was it? Was it? Was
I
it?
think, well, we can,
Anyway,
there's,
okay, so that's a
we'll
whole
talk
other
about,
topic.
yes, I think
But
they're early, there were some leaked documents last I saw.
I did see
Yeah.
that, but I didn't know where it had led to at the end of the day.
Well, it
Okay,
was,
sorry.
you're right.
Yes,
So
I know.
I should caution that it may not have happened today, but is imminent. So, I mean, how does that actually, do all these fears kind of saturate into your writing in some way? I mean, how do you process that?
So I don't walk around terrified all the time. I don't like I'm not, shaking in my boots all the time. I just find that, and I'm sorry, I'm coughing. I've been talking more in the
Oh, no,
last
no.
2 weeks than the last 2 years.
I'll be the mother, the Jewish mother. You should drink
Yes,
more.
I'm trying. I'm trying. Um, I have to remember what I was saying.
Yeah.
So when it comes to all those fears, as a person, I'm a Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
So as a person, I'm quite upbeat and happy and positive, and I want to be my kids' emotional safety net, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to be other people's emotional safety net.
Right.
I consider myself a very strong, resilient person. I couldn't have gotten through publishing 20 years to get here if I weren't.
Oh, for sure.
But I definitely have fears and worries and anxieties,
Mm-hmm.
um, and a very, very dark mind. And it's not, yes, it is.
Really.
I have a very, I have a very dark mind. So I'm a pure Gemini, where I do have these two sides to me.
Right.
So in my real life, I guess outside of writing, or I don't know what you call that, um, I am, yeah, happy and optimistic, and I see the world as a place of hope, not sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
In my writing, however, that is where I put it all.
Right.
And so that is where I channel all of, the angst and the raw emotion, and, really bare my soul. And I throw it onto these characters, and these characters, they're not me. So
Right.
it
Of
also
course.
helps me create a separation from those fears,
Mhm.
because it's their fears. I'm
Right.
just using I guess, my emotions to access how I need them to feel,
Right.
if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. I mean, do you keep the characters with you? Like, do you think about them? Are you still in their head, even though the book is, all said and done?
Oh, it's interesting. Well, yes, because when you're talking about it, what I do, so when I'm done a book, I actually usually never read it again. When I'm done and it's out there, I never read it again because of course then there are things I'm going to want to change and I'm
Sure.
going to start thinking, and then forget it. I worked really hard and I did everything I could to create the very best book I could with my editor, my critique partners. Like it's done and it doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to my readers. Now it belongs to my readers.
Mm-hmm.
So to have, what comes what may.
Right.
But yes, they do. All my characters in all my books will always live inside me. I
Mm-hmm.
will always carry them with me. I'll always wonder what happens next for them. They are real people to me, as probably to someone who's not a writer, maybe, or not a reader, that probably does sound quite
Right.
psychotic. But they are real to me. I
Mm-hmm.
created them. They became real. They became part of me. So there's all these characters that, live in my heart and soul and in my mind all the time.
Amazing. Well, so you say, I mean, you never read your book again. So let's talk about, let's backtrack. Let's talk about your process. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone has their own process. Are you like the seat of your pants writer? Are you a planner? How do you do this?
So I used to write edgy rom-coms 20 years ago, and I
Mm-hmm.
used to be a seat of my pants writer. And
Right.
then when I started writing thrillers, for me, it was a very different process. Not
Mm-hmm.
that one is easier than the other by any means. It was just
Right.
my process. I know thriller writers who don't outline, they can put out a draft that's gold. Okay, that's not me. I outline 15 to 17 pages.
Wow.
Once I have the premise, once the premise is set, and even the premise, I will like tweak that premise. And then I will write a very detailed outline of character arcs, motivations, backstories, the plot beats, the clues. I do a 3-act structure. I lay out all my scenes generally,
Right.
but I do have to be careful not to let my outline stifle me as I write. So I have to make sure I let the story evolve and I let the characters lead me, and that that the story organically progresses
Mm-hmm.
as it should. So there is a lot that changes from the outline that I'm not expecting to change because my characters want
Right.
them to change.
Got it. Got it. That's amazing. And so on a day, like, do you write every day?
I do write every day, but so what happened was, so before the pandemic, I had this great schedule, and I would, usually I would write, I'd get up at, a regular normal person hour, like 7 o'clock, and maybe about 9, I'd sit at my desk, I'd write till 12, and I would do my social media in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then, and all the emails and all these things I have to do. And then suddenly during the pandemic, and my kids are home, and I don't have an office. This is my kitchen. I don't have a door.
Seems like a beautiful kitchen.
Well, yes, this is my privacy screen.
I love it.
You don't see what's behind me.
I love it.
Yeah, except that it's really just like behind me. It's not like on all sides anyone can sneak around. So what happened was I started getting up at 4 or 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
because the only time that I had for myself and for my words was that time in the morning. And I maintained that. I'm doing that now that my kids are back in school, because my eyes fly open and I just
Yeah.
want to write and I just want to do it. And I get so excited to start
Right.
that now, so I'm up at 4 or 5 and I write every day and on the weekends too, I just find because my eyes fly open and I'm
Mm-hmm.
compelled to do it. And then I write about 8, 9.
Right.
And then I find, well, now that I'm doing promo, my day is, so
Right.
online at the moment. So I find, I'm not writing as much at the present moment, but when I go back to bed, I'll probably get up 4 or 5 a.m.
Well, that's very impressive. Very impressive. Those are early hours that I haven't seen in a while. So tips for so talk about like new writers. We're talking about thriller writers and rom-com writers. I mean, like people who are just breaking into the industry. I mean, what are your pearls of wisdom?
I always want everyone to know I'm not an overnight success. I'll start there. I
Right.
really, when you see an author who's a bestseller and you see, you imagine, oh wow, she wrote a book and it got published. No, that's not at all. I've been
Right.
writing since I was 10 years old. I submitted my first manuscript when I was 10 and it was
Wow.
rejected. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
I've been writing forever, and I've been writing full-length novels. That was, a small story,
Right.
since I was 29, and I will be
Right.
49 at the end of May. So exactly 20 years. I
Right.
have written 5 books, and I have
Uh-huh.
2 books that are published.
Right.
So all of the other ones, nobody wanted. No one wanted them. So what I learned through all of that time and everything since then is that you cannot give up if you want this. If you have a story to tell, it's not going to be easy. It's
Right.
never, ever going to be easy. And it could be very, very long. But you have to believe in your words and in your story, and you are going to be rejected and your work is going to be torn apart. And you have to accept that.
Yeah.
And you have to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
You just roll up your sleeves and you get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think what really, really helped me was I have very supportive people behind me. I have a huge support system. I have family, friends, the author community. Find your people in the writing community.
Mm-hmm.
It can be intimidating to reach out for sure, but the writing community is really, truly, from what I have experienced, the most
Right.
genuine, supportive, loving, warm, kind community. We just want to help each other.
Right. That's heartwarming actually. And I think, I think that's true. And finding your people is always good advice.
Yeah.
I say that even to my kids or anyone,
Yes.
find your people. And once you find your people, everything seems to make sense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Exactly. You can turn out all the noise and
Right.
anything else. Just, yeah, find the people that you trust, the people who get you and want the best for you.
Right. So, okay, I feel like I should say watch out for Samantha Bailey because those were like really inspiring words. Watch out for Samantha Bailey because I'm going to coin that term and now everyone's going to use it. So what's the plan now? So you launched this, so you dropped this amazing thriller. And what is promotion like now in the age of like the kind of early post-pandemic, maybe post-pandemic, who knows what stage we're in right now? Is it
Well, I
still
have to say it's been a little while. I'm this will not be humble, but I feel really stunned and amazed. And the reason this happened is because I have such incredible readers. It came out on the 26th, and on the 27th, it hit the Globe and Mail and Toronto Star bestseller lists.
Woo, amazing. Wow.
So
Okay.
I can't tell you, especially with a
Yeah.
second novel, and there is a
Right.
lot of pressure when you write a second novel. When
Mhm.
that happened, I always knew I had the best readers and the
Mhm.
bookstagrammers and people, and people like you who take the time to create something to promote authors are
Right.
the reason that I can sustain a career, the reason I hit those lists. So
Mhm.
I'm so grateful. So I've been doing this. I've been doing this for quite a while. I did live TV with CTV
Ooh, yeah.
and
Amazing. Amazing.
CHCH. I have done IG lives, Instagram
Mhm.
lives with authors who take the time to bring other authors onto their pages. And you know how much, like, it takes a lot of prep.
Mhm.
So you create a magazine
Right.
to, help the literary community. So I've been doing a lot of that, podcast, radio,
Right.
CBC, Sirius. I get to do all these amazing, life-changing, wild, surreal. Like it's surreal. These
Right.
things I get to do. But I must say, for about a week and a bit now, I feel like I'm living a totally different life from my usual life.
Right. So, yeah, I can see that. Okay. And I mean, I think you gave some really inspiring words to writers who are struggling. So I think that's amazing. But maybe give us like two moments in your career. Like what was the low point and what was the high point? Like what was that point that where you're like, oh, I don't want to swear on in a live show, but what was the point where it's like, oh shoot, that this is just not working? And what was like the kind of pinnacle?
The low point.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of low points. A lot of low points. I've been rejected so many times. It's hard to go back and say, like, what was that low point?
Well, how do you handle the rejection? I mean, now, I mean, you're in a different stage right now, but how did you?
In the beginning, and I was young too. I was, I'd signed with a New York City agent really quickly, my first agent, and so I guess I was naive. I was going to be the overnight success, and I would say a low point for sure was at the very beginning of my journey when we went on submission with two different rom-coms, and it was they were both resoundingly rejected, and I thought, oh. okay, this isn't going to be like I thought it was going to be. But there was whatever was in me, that it was a burning passion. It was a burning
Right.
passion that I couldn't stop. Um, but I think that was a shock because
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it. I expected and dreamed. Now from that I have learned. I have no expectations. I have big hopes and dreams, but I have no expectations
Mm-hmm.
because again, I can't control the uncontrollable. Publishing can be a brutal and wonderful and exhilarating and excruciating business, and I have so little control over it, and it's a very subjective business.
Right.
So those are my lows. So, but I kept going because I knew that I wanted this more than anything in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I would forever regret if I didn't go after it until the day I died. Thank God it didn't take that long.
Right. Oh, yeah.
The, the
Yeah.
highest point
Yeah.
was when I fell to my knees
Yeah.
in relief and just joy when I had amicably parted ways with my first agent and signed with my current agent, who's absolutely wonderful. And we went on submission, and it sold with Woman on the Edge. Woman on the Edge sold first in foreign territories, and it was selling one after the other. And I was like, "What is happening? Oh my god!" Um, and so I was so happy and so excited. But I was, what was going to happen in North America? What was going to happen? And when Simon and Schuster Canada, when Nita Pronovo offered,
Yeah.
wanted to acquire it, I fell to my knees, and it makes me emotional because that was the moment I thought that this is finally happening. That after
Right.
20 years, that I did it, that I did it, and dreams come true.
Right. Well, that's, I mean,
Yeah, sorry.
no, you know what? I think I'm so glad you shared that in such a candid way, because I think that, there's so many people that, I mean, not even just for writing, that struggle. And I think, the pandemic has given a lot of people pause to really re-examine what they want to do for their lives. And maybe what was that thing I always wanted? And maybe I don't have forever to do it. Maybe now's the time. So I think um, those are really powerful emotions for you to share. And I'm really grateful you did, because, it's tough, but, it's not easy. And I'm really relieved, because I think a lot of people do believe, in that overnight success. And it's hard not to. The media has really
Or
presented us this kind of narrative of everyone is an overnight success, except no one really is an overnight success.
And if
Uh,
you ask the authors, every author will tell you their horror story. We all have one to share. All of us. All of
right,
us. All of us have a story, and especially if you look at the biggest, and I mean the biggest bestsellers, their stories are probably the hardest.
right.
They for most of them really really struggle to get where they were, and it's that struggle and it's that
Mm-hmm.
fear that makes us appreciate it all the more.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. I mean, Samantha Bailey. So everyone, it's watch out for her. I'm going to name the screen. Watch out for her. I made sure to pre-order on Amazon, so everyone else should do that. And
Thank you.
watch out for Samantha. And thanks so much for your time. And I will hopefully have you back with your next book.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me. This was so lovely.
This is lovely for me too. Okay, thanks everyone, and tune in again shortly for the next episode of the interview. Bye
Thank
for now.
you. Bye.